Naloxone blocks opioid receptors. So if you've got, let's say, let me give you, here's an interesting situation. Let's say you've got a person shows up in an ER for heroin overdose. One way that's commonly used to treat that situation is to give them an injection of naloxone. Because naloxone is a competitive antagonist. Do you remember that term from chapter 1, competitive antagonism? For the receptor. Well, if you give them naloxone, it will act, it has such a strong affinity for the receptor that it will bump the heroin off of the receptor, occupy the receptor, and therefore reverse the effects of heroin overdose. That's kind of neat. And it could be very neat if you happen to be the person that's there because of the heroin overdose. You might otherwise die. Okay, we talked about autoreceptors, we talked about both stimulating and blocking, we talked about, okay, here's one we didn't talk about. Drug inhibits neurotransmitter degradation. If the neurotransmitter is primarily deactivated by being metabolized by enzymes, and you block that enzyme degradation, then you're going to prolong the effects of the neurotransmitter. And a good example of that would be acetylcholine again. Because if you remember, acetylcholine goes through two steps of deactivation. One is, it goes through enzyme degradation first, and then part of it is reabsorbed through reuptake into the cell so that it can synthesize more acetylcholine. Okay, that covers the ones that are listed there. Abby, on the test, should I ask you to tell me all 11 of them and give me examples where appropriate?
I'd rather you didn't.
Huh?
I'd rather you didn't.
Well, I think I said the other day I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
What I did say was I might ask you to tell me 3 or 4 ways in which a drug can alter synaptic transmission, and maybe have questions about, okay, the mechanism of action of dopamine, of cocaine, for example, is what? Block the reuptake of dopamine. So, you need to be familiar enough with that to be able to, on a multiple choice item, think about if something I list is a way that fits one of these, or if it's you might have to identify the correct mechanism of action, or on a discussion question, you might have to list 3 or 4 of them and maybe give an example. But I'm not going to require that you know all 11 of those and an example of each of them. Actually, I want you to bring some colored pencils, and I want you to draw that diagram exactly in the same color, with the same clarity and resolution that has. Think you can do that for me, Ann?
I'll accept the challenge.
Okay. But that diagram and the diagram on the processes involved in synaptic transmission are 2 key diagrams in this chapter. And just to remind you of what diagram I'm talking about, the one on page 83. Could you summarize that diagram in every sentence? much bet that on part 2 of the test, there will be something related to that. The diagram on page 83 and the diagram on page 93. Okay, that wraps up what we're going to say about this chapter.